here with Daza Greenwood, who is an MIT scientist, and he has just come out on a very interesting event called...
Originally, we called it a charrette, where we do some design, idea, brainstorming. I think what happened in reality was it was more like a, I don't know, I guess we'd call it like a creative jam session. The concept of a charrette is one that comes from architecture, where people get together and they bubble up different concepts of designs, and they do a quick sketch. Like, you do the skyscraper this way, you can do it that way, you can engineer it like this, you can do a big park, small park, big wheel. And the idea is you draw and you draw and you draw. We didn't quite do that, but what we did do was the fundamentals, which was we created a lot. Everyone got a chance to speak. We created a lot of ideas in this great whiteboard at Brooklyn Law School.
Right.
And then at the end, there was a kind of people started to come together on the topic.
Yes.
What is the topic? We haven't said, but it was good.
So the topic, am I wrong in saying it was something to do with data wrangling?
You're not wrong.
Okay.
You're right. It was about Wrangle, and what it had to do with wrangling. We're here in Brooklyn Law School, really under the auspices of Professor Jonathan Askin.
Yes.
First, and he was not the only professor here. I think the Blip Clinic really came through with convening a data science session with the New York Attorney General's office, who's interested in putting open data online in a way that ordinary citizens, that newspapers, that researchers, and others, law enforcement, when they want to find wrongdoers, that others can interrogate to see, learn more about, in their case, influence online, public corruption, even potentially. So they wanted to look at the data they have for lobbyists and contributions, the data they have for legislation, the data they have for public contracts. And everybody knows that there can be shenanigans here. That's why we have all of this ethics and other rules and procurement laws. And other data can show real patterns of influence, of relationships that we could not really know before anecdotally. You can see a graph, like a God's eye view, almost down on all of these patterns of interactions and relationships that form this model, like a statistical model that you can visualize, and it gives you a sense of what's going on. So even if, a lot of the stuff, I think when we talk, it's not going to be, no one's going to start, prosecuting. It doesn't constitute a crime. And, the real value may not be in, using data to, for law enforcement and legal compliance and regulation, but really just to show what's going on so people can be informed about how influence is peddled and how power is allocated, and follow the money and the different interest groups, through the public decision-making process, and the resource allocations in different ways for legislation, public contracts, and otherwise. And then maybe people can make more informed decisions when they have a better sense of how things are, when they can know more what the lobbyists know, and more what the political action committees know, and others. And so it's the New York Attorney General's office, the Internet Bureau, and the other folks, the new data scientists, and so really a star team came by on Jonathan's invitation, and I was able to bring a terrific postdoc from MIT, Arik, who was a top-rate data scientist, to join us on Skype, and then you had the good government groups here. You had CUSP graduate students working on data analytics with us, AG's office in the state, and others. Ben Kalos, my hero. The city councilor here, who I met also at Brooklyn Law School the first time, and who's hacking the law properly and well, who's opening the law for people, and who's utilizing the levers of government and governance to open data and to open government. So we had a terrific group here. We brainstormed, and that's what the charrette, it was better than what we expected. We thought we were going to do a charrette, but instead we used this kind of legal hackathon process that Jonathan Askin and New York legal hackers have kind of got a design pattern here, and it's one that emerges. And there's something about setting the conditions right and then having the right people, goodwill, and what they want to talk about making things better, that really works sometimes. It worked today. And so we came up with some terrific ideas of things to do, coming up. Next big thing's going to be, I think, June 6th and 7th, the National Day of Legal Hacking. And maybe in June 15th, perhaps it sounds like, when Brooklyn Law School may be convening, or 16th again. People doing civic-oriented technology efforts from academia, and there'll be a nice cadence that comes from here. Good things reform today here.
Well, that's a very interesting explanation of what I was watching myself.
Yeah, how did it look? What did you see?
Well, I was very excited by just the energy and the thought process that was going on. There were a lot of ideas that had not occurred to me personally before, and with such interesting, intelligent folk all together in the same room discussing the concept of open government and the complexities of dealing with the different types of data that's available, and how to actually wrangle it and get it into a format that can be used in a useful way.
Yeah. So much of the meeting was about just getting the data so we could compute something on it.
Yes.
So, just that. So just getting the data so we can begin.
Yes. That certainly seemed to be one of the key issues that I observed.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious about is how long this process, these ideas have been out there in debate in the way they were today. This is all very new to me, as a sort of a civic tech type thing going on, and I was just excited by it, and I'm just wondering, how long have you been involved in this sort of process, and how long has this sort of process really been alive in New York?
Well, so what do you reckon this process was? Like, there's a few processes happening today.
Right.
What are you speaking to?
Well, some of the things that came out in my mind was, first of all, this idea of open government, and the fact that the community could essentially get involved in helping itself manage itself, so that it sort of
I'm going to say
down some
1750 for that one, probably. And I think there's, arguably earlier, but that, I think John Locke and his group, and then through the revolutionary founders of the United States of America, there's bits that came before that in Cromwell and English history and there's dribs and drabs, I guess, in the Byzantine Empire and stuff. Open government, really, I feel, pardon me for putting it this way, but the United States of America is premised upon free access to data so that free people can have reliable information upon which to make decisions about self-governance.
Right.
Like, that's World War II era till recently were shaken up, but now I think all bets are off in terms of where adequate data is propagated, and openly and evenly accessible by everyone, sufficient to make those decisions, and so this is part of an unbroken chain of dialogue and debate, hot debate, that goes back before this country was formed,
right,
about how the mechanisms and methods to make sure that we have the data public. It's a continuous twilight, endless dialogue, as long as the American experiment continues, where all free people want to govern themselves. This is going to be an endless dialogue applied to facts as they emerge, new tech, new practices. So I'm going to say that the first one's going to say 1750-ish, What other things did you observe? And I can tell you when they started. Most of the other ones are going to be a few years ago, I'll bet. But well, let's see.
Well, I guess,
what else you got?
I guess from my perspective,
Yeah.
it's the tech aspect of it
Yeah,
that is interesting to me. Because
Yeah.
that's my background.
Yep.
And I'm seeing people
That's a new model.
embracing the capabilities of the new technologies
Mm-hmm.
in order to be able to data mine
You bet.
and wrangle data for the benefit of these open government sort of agendas.
Yeah, I see that too. So I mean, so your colleague Harold, who's here, is reference
Yes.
librarian, right?
He is. Yes.
Yeah, and so you know, I'm working with now a small group of librarians in law schools who, along with archivists and some others, I think really get it about the essential role of data, access to data in real time, access to data with integrity that you can find it, you can sort, filter, search, discover it to start with in a reasonable way, not based upon the first 10, next 10, maybe few pages of Google search is really all you can squeeze through most people's mind. I know I numb out after too many of those.
Right.
Just the page refresh rates and the weird way it's composed. That is hardly a Dewey Decimal System. It's not a even research integrity ready schema on those cards by a long shot. It's pretty cool compared to nothing. But now as we look to use this new technology as the rudiment of exchange of information and the flow of ideas for our civilization, the requirements are higher. And so, luckily the technology isn't just screwing things up.
Right.
It's also, holds the promise to make them way better, even closer to the founders' ideal and the people that really came up with this stuff in Europe. That's where they really came up from, and others, like 5th century Greece, and like there's a thread of dialogue that goes back a long way, and what they had in mind was marketplaces of ideas, ecologies of people that self-organize in various ways. They're somewhat complex and emergent and intelligent in the aggregate, responsive and cool and fit to purpose and can adapt from time to time. And that's the flourish of civilization when it looks great, when it's smart, when it's fast, it has to be fast, when it's big, when it has to be big, when it's strong, it has to be strong, when it's quiet, when it has to be quiet. These are well-adapted strategies, and they depend on good sensors of the environment and what's happening, and good ways to adapt well. These kinds of rudiments are well served by the same technology. It's made it hard to do it the way we did in the agrarian age and the industrial age, with hierarchical systems and kind of all that. Now we've got material design, like Google material design. It's a terrific example. This will be well known by the time most people see this video, I think. But if you take a look, just do a Google search for material design, you'll come to the Google page, and you'll come to a bunch of other pages. It's just a nice, crisp, well thought through, comprehensive design palette for. It's not just like the mood board and the color scheme on a website like CSS. It's also, what goes on the navigation menu and how that relates to this great concept called cards. So you put things on a card, and like a little abstract thing on a card. When you click on, it takes you to more stuff. You'll recognize it immediately when you click on it. You're like, oh yeah, a lot of apps and websites are like this, and that's really good. So it's a thing. It's an example of a trend of utilizing the technology and beginning to settle into architectural and design patterns that are trustworthy, that are capable of bearing weight. So when you're pushing, education and healthcare and government and all this stuff through the web, now the stakes are higher. It's not just it's a fun, like portal anymore, or we can search and do a Boolean and pull up 50 pages. Well, it's a different use case. Now the use case is, can we educate people? Can we have state government? Can we hail a taxi or an Uber? Can we healthcare? Everything fundamentally, money, entertainment. It's all being composed as services, information services that are made up of bits and that occur on networks, and that's a digital economy, and these patterns make it so that we can. Sorry, that's really long way. These patterns, I feel like that's the stuff. That's the kernel of the solution. So now we can apply that stuff so that the data doesn't have to be wrangled from chaos, but it's already composed as a service and expresses itself at an interface, and things can start like coming together logically and usably, so we can gain insights and take action. You know. Sorry, that was so long. What was the question?
Well,
what are we doing next? Is
well,
like the reason I'm here is partly you, Lloyd.
Well,
like what you guys are up to with the technology, with Blip and with Jonathan Askins, very, very interesting. I've got my eye on you, Mister. I'd like to know more about how is it showing up in your life.
Right. Well, as you know, and you're fortunate for us, you're going to be a participant in the upcoming Carly.
That's right.
Conference.
If we go to this one, camera 1, camera 2. Is that camera 2? Yep, camera 2. Yeah, there we go. See, we just did brainstorming. Oh, okay. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Yeah, that's right.
This sheet. Did you guys send?
Oh, yeah. We'd like, if you don't mind, yeah.
This
is Harold wanted to.
You're probably wondering what's going on here.
At least have name spelling so that when we are doing
and
stuff in our videos.
Jonathan Askins.
I just tried to scan it and email, but it didn't work for some reason.
They're having a sidebar at the moment on important administrative matters. So, let me pick up that last topic.
We have to run.
You're probably wondering, what about me? What about my access to data? Well, we're going to hook you up on June 6th, and you can find out more at law.mit.edu. And now we're going back to our regularly scheduled hangouts. Do you want to get some food or something later? I'm going to be around tonight.
We have to go to dinner.
Okie dokie. Hey, good to see you. And we're massively screwing up this broadcast, so like that was a lot of fun. We better get back to it. And I want to come back and visit all the time now.
Could you please come back?
Yeah, I need a place to roll my knapsack out somewhere, so you get this place rezoned. Tell me.
Okay.
Why don't we wrap it up now?